Hello and welcome back. So today I am going to go over why I sold my business. But first I want to share with you the inspiration behind today's video because it's probably not what you think it is. So in 2020 I sold my company, and it just so happened that the timing worked out that I met the buyer at the end of January. We were going through due diligence and negotiations all throughout February and most of March, and we finalized the deal at the end of March, like literally one day before all the stay-at-home orders went into effect for the pandemic in our area. And some people will probably look at the timing of that and say that that's pretty lucky. Now, in hindsight, I would say that the timing of it was a little bit unfortunate because post-acquisition integration is pretty complicated, and to throw a pandemic into the mix just made that all the more stressful. So anyways, I started sharing the news that I sold the company shortly thereafter with friends, family, and other business owners I knew. Now, most everybody was congratulatory, but what really surprised me was actually the responses from other business owners. Now, these were not clients of mine. So these were just people that I knew in my circle that I built a network with. And their response was, how do I say this? Their response was a little bit like they were throwing shade my way, as in they felt like I was a sellout and I couldn't hack it, and that's why I sold my business and ran away from it. Now that itself was pretty surprising, but I think what surprised me even more was the fact that I kind of caught a glimpse of myself in their eyes. In other words, like, I was somebody who was just like them, who actually believed in probably the same philosophy that they did. And I probably at one time had the same attitude as them. Like, have you ever ran into somebody who said something or did something where you were kind of like, whoa, I used to be them like 10 years ago? That's kind of what happened to me. And it sent me down a little bit of memory lane as to why that was the attitude I had and how I outgrew that. And I realized that because I was scouring the internet and podcasts and interviews and YouTube videos for as much information as I could about small business and entrepreneurship and, even motivational videos and stuff like that, that I've kind of built like a false sense, or back then I did, rather built like a false sense of what success looked like. And selling your business on a small business scale wasn't success, right? Because, I mean, let's admit it, like, we're not the ones that are getting interviewed on, big talk shows or the news or anything like that. The people who are on these shows and like networks are really people who had multi-billion-dollar sales or 9 or 10-figure sales. You don't hear about the 6 and 7, and sometimes you don't even hear about the 8-figure sales, right? You almost have to go really big in order for you to actually become deemed as a success. And this is kind of type of information that I was allowing to skew my perception of what success should be. Now, all this advice that I was listening to and all of the information I was listening to, of course, was given with good intentions. So a lot of this is really just my perception of it all and how I kind of embodied that information. So who knows? I don't know. I mean, you tell me if this is not something that you yourself felt before, but I did feel like a lot of the popular advice that I received during that time were things like, go big or go home. If you're not growing, then you're dying. Business is like war. You need to win. It's always going to be an uphill battle, so you better work your way up. It was always a fight. It was always a fight for something. It was always a battle, and it was like a glorious battle, which is this, war of business. Then on top of that, you layer all, like I said, these success stories that you heard about in the news, where some founder bootstrapped their business, lived out of their car for years, but now is the CEO of a $100 million company. Or some other founder who, almost went bankrupt twice before they actually sold their company for $1 billion. Or, here's the company who's, built their company in 5 years and sold it for $100 million. And it was just like stories like that, which kind of allowed it to feed into my concept of what success is, which actually slowed me down a bit because I didn't take the time to really define success for myself. I didn't take the time to really define what the end game was for me, for something that was a compelling enough future that, was going to get me through the, trials and tribulations of just growing as a person and as a business owner and growing a business. And because of this, during the time where I had this kind of attitude and this ego about what it is to be a small business owner, I was absolutely 100% miserable as hell. I was so miserable. It just felt like every day I was eating shit and I didn't like it and I hated it and I just kept doing it. So I fell into the cycle of just doing for the sake of doing and moving toward a goal that I wasn't even in love with. And so while that was happening, I couldn't enjoy my journey. And until I broke out of that cycle, did I really start feeling like I was on like an adventure and that what I was doing was actually worth it and that I actually had the purpose and the goal that I knew that I wanted. And that's when I stopped listening to other people's ideals. And that's when I started respecting other people's success and other people's journey because it's uniquely theirs. And I didn't need my success to look like theirs to be a success myself. My guess is that there is still a lot of misconceptions out there about what success looks like and what business should look like. So I found this quote in a book that was actually written in 2011, which was the same year I founded my company, but I really didn't discover this book until recent. It described really well kind of how I feel about the perception of success in business and what it is today versus what it used to be, and how kind of the old school thinking is still floating around and really misguiding a lot of us about what business is. Well, let me share with you a paragraph that's written in this book that I think really puts together nicely kind of what I'm saying about like the new way of doing business versus the old way of doing business, and how I think the old way of doing business is certainly something that's still floating around today, but it's not something that I believe we should be embracing, because I think it's a one way train to just a living hell. And this is what it says. Old school thinking commends businesses and founders based on size, scale, and sales. New school thinking heralds business owners who have exercised creativity and leveraged entrepreneurship as an opportunity to achieve their own unique goals and needs. Old school thinking applauds growth for growth's sake. New school thinking believes that growth should be determined by your goals and that the right size and direction is a matter of personal opinion. I couldn't have said this better myself. So this is from the book called The Big Enough Company, which is written by Adelaide Lancaster and Amy Abrams. I also want to share with you another quote from the book, which says, "The art of entrepreneurship is about undertaking smart growth that is strategic, creative, and goal-driven. It's about feeling out the options, understanding what is best for you and your business, and consistently selecting the next best direction, all with your goals and needs in mind." So instead of asking yourself how big and how fast, consider what size is big enough to get the job done. Instead of evaluating your progress with a numerical multiplier, consider whether your company is having the impact you want. Instead of asking yourself how your company stacks up against another, consider how satisfied you are with the company you created. Okay, so I couldn't have said it better myself, which is why I am reading from the book to you. But that one paragraph neatly encapsulates kind of my idea and my sentiment. And like I said, a lesson that I didn't learn until a little bit later as a business owner. But it really did help me break free from the chains of just ego and just disillusionment of what success is as defined by popular opinion. So let me tell you why I ended up selling my business. So I sold my business because that was my goal, to build a business that was sellable in 10 or less years. And during that time, I am able to mine as much business experience as possible. What I really wanted was I wanted to see the entire cycle. I want to see a company from end to end, from the start of it and creating it to selling it and seeing the post-sale process and what that was like. And I did it in a time and at the size that I wanted and that was right for me. I can tell you that my goal was derived out of my own need and desire, and I did not listen to anybody else about whether or not that goal is right. Now, I certainly took people's advice and opinions about strategies that I could put in place in order to achieve that goal, but I didn't need somebody else's opinion to tell me whether or not that goal should be the goal that I should aim for. So anyways, I hope that this video can be an inspiration to you as the business owner and the founder of your business to go ahead and stand by the goal that you put together for yourself, and don't let anybody else tell you that that is not a goal that you should be pursuing. Absolutely own what it is that you want. You know yourself best, you know your desires, you know your needs. Build a company that works for you. Build the company that you want, irrelevant to what anybody else says as to what the definition of success is. Make sure you define what success looks like to you so that you know that you are working toward a compelling future and that you're in love with this future enough that any trials and tribulations that you experience as a business owner will be something that you can easily, or just something that you can overcome. Maybe it won't be easy and maybe it's a lot of hard work, but at least it's something that you will be able to handle and you can actually enjoy the journey while you're on it. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks so much for sticking it out with me, and I'll see you in the next video.